What's up, fish heads? How's everybody doing today? Welcome to my kitchen. And yeah, it's kind of messy, eh? What are we gonna do today? Well, let me tell you. I always gotta remember where the camera is too, because I'm not, this is all kind of new to me, and being in my kitchen, it's gonna be a little bit echoey. So I do apologize for that. What we're gonna do today is we're gonna set up a super budget nano tank. And this tank is free. And just as a disclaimer, before anybody jumps on me, everything that we see in this video has been prepped. It's not like I'm dumping anything new. Water's been prepped, plants have been prepped, fish have been prepped. And I'll kind of go through what I plan on doing here with this. So what we have here is a glass jar, maybe 1.5 gallons, maybe 2 gallons. I've been rinsing it out and testing it, so I do apologize. Let me make sure. And it has a almost airtight lid for it. So you can see that's going to be the finished project. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a little windowsill nano tank. Now, when putting anything without a heater, you do got to monitor your temperature. So second disclaimer, when I say I'm going to sit it on the windowsill, I mean I'm going to sit it on the windowsill where I can monitor it. This is going to go up in my office right beside me on my computer. We run central air throughout the summertime, and we obviously heat our house with forced air throughout the wintertime. So temperatures should stay pretty close to optimal temperatures for the fish that I chose. And for this build, I'm using 4 white cloud minnows, and that's all that's going to be in this little tank. We have some Java moss, which I got free. I got this when I purchased some shrimp, and I decided to keep it. And so this is going to be our plant material. We have one rock, one decorative rock. I'm going to use the word decorative. This is a decorative rock, not just your average ordinary rock. This, my friends, is a decorative rock, and that's all the difference. So what you're going to need for a build like this is you're going to need some substrate. Luckily, I have some leftover, well, it's not a bag of garbage, guys. I have some leftover Fluval stratum that we're going to be using as the substrate. And we're going to do a real simple tank. The reason that we got to do this tank simply is because, well, it needs as much water volume as possible to make sure that we're sustaining life and plants and everything else like that. But also, the more water volume that we have available to us, the less likely the parameters are to spike and to get all crazy. So that's why really only going to have one hard object. I just gave this rock a quick rinse. I pulled this rock out of another aquarium probably 5 years ago, and it's just been sitting in a bin of aquarium rocks that I have, and I thought, yeah, this one will work. I don't want anything too crazy, anything too drastic. So I guess the first thing that we need to do is see if the rock fits in here. And that was my other thing. Does everything fit and sit? So there you go. We can see that, yep, we can definitely get that rock in there. It's not going to be the most interesting tank in the world, but it's going to be real. And that's the most important thing. That's the wonder of science. All right, so I got my dirty soil spoon here, and we're going to get some stratum into the tank. So excuse the garbage bag. We're going to get some of that stratum in there now, if I don't make a mess. And this stratum has been pre-rinsed. It's just been sitting in the plastic bag, so it's controllable. So we're going to get some of that stratum in there. This is such a wonderful substrate, guys. If you haven't used Fluval stratum yet, I highly recommend it. Now what I want to do is basically, can't really do anything overly decorative, but what I want to do is I want to make sure that we have stratum kind of at a level playing field here. Hopefully you guys can see that. I can't even see the view screen on this camera, guys, so I'm kind of going blind, so do bear with me. So we're gonna, hey, if Dustin can do it, then I can do it too, right? We all got to start somewhere, guys, with the hobby and with YouTube. All right, I think one more scoop should do. So let's get it done. Get out one more scoop of gravel there. And we're gonna get that in. So I think that's probably gonna be more than enough gravel. Let me get rid of the gravel. Put that out of the way. So we'll get this gravel. Ugh. One thing I will say about stratum, it will get you dirty. You can consider these things like little caviar. You can break them. So we'll get our layer of stratum in there, making sure that we want it a couple of centimeters deep, but not crazy deep. So what I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to get up to that ledge of this little vessel. And I think that's going to do it. I think we're going to be okay with that. As I make a mess, I think that's going to be okay, guys. I think that's actually going to look pretty good. Let's get the dirty spoon. You can see with this stratum too, it can break up if you're rough with it. Hence, always have paper towel, especially if you're working in the kitchen and not everybody appreciates fish like you do. The other thing, always use glass containers. That way you can wash them and put your leftovers back in them. So always do that. So this water is dechlorinated. It's room temperature. It's actually been sitting with the Java moss for a few days now. And my house has a dechlorinator built into it. So any water that comes out of my tap automatically is softened and chlorine free. All right, so everything's kind of tidied up there. Just want to let people know before they go, oh, those poor, what are you doing? No, actually these fish are going to have a great life. And so rock was free, stratum free, but you could use any type of decent substrate. I would probably make sure that the substrate's on the smaller side. That way it kind of keeps the scale of this little nano build together. Now, typically, I wouldn't hardscape on top of stratum, because as we saw earlier, and I can show you here, maybe, let's try that again. Stratum is actually dirt. It almost like encapsulated dirt is the best way that I can describe it. So typically if you're doing a hardscape on top of stratum, the hardscape will crush whatever stratum's underneath it. But since we're only at this one stone, I think we're going to be okay. I don't think we're going to be crushing anything. So let's make sure that we get that stone in there. Give it a little bit of a wiggle to get it settled. And make sure that you do this as gently as possible. Of course, when you're working on a vessel this small, the rule of thirds doesn't really come into effect due to the fact that the vessel is so small. You really kind of are forced to conform. Oh, I'm sure you can do more decorative. I'm sure I could find a small piece of driftwood or something along those lines. But what I'm really decided to do is use what I have on hand. And this is what I have on hand. So this is what I'm going to be using. The next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to add our Java moss. And basically what I want to try to do is just pin it, a little bit of it, just pin it underneath the rock. So it's not all floating on the surface, and it will start to grip onto the rock and the stratum. Now you can do this a number of different ways. Just shove it and then shove the rock on top of it, or try to pinch and push it underneath. I think for this build, I think I'm going to try to kind of build it up into this corner and kind of call this the back of the tank. So what we can do now is we can take the Java moss, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch it so it's kind of folded, so we're not sticking the ends of the stalk in slightly to submerge them. We're going to be sticking the middle in, and that seems to work for me. I mean, Java moss is pretty forgiving, and it may still float away on me. We'll soon see. So we're going to just kind of start to manipulate it and kind of get a few strands of it under the stratum. And if we want to, I can always come in and add a little bit more stratum along that edge and hopefully see what stalks we can hold down. I don't want to bury the Java moss. What I want to do is I want to ensure that it's held securely in place so then it can start to root itself. And that's where things become important. So let's just take a little bit of the stratum. We'll use our tweezers again, and we'll just place some on top. Gingerly is the word to use here. Once again, I'm not trying to bury the Java moss. I'm trying to just get a few strands of it secured so that way it'll stay submerged. That's why I don't want to put the rock on top of it. I just want to use the stratum. And I think we may be okay. I guarantee you, the more I say, oh, it'll be okay, it'll float away for sure. So let's just take just a touch more. Well, now we're doing some serious aquascaping here. When you gotta crack out the tweezers, you know it's important. And we'll get that over there. Like so. And let's just get that into place. One of the things I like about nano tanks is this precision. I was telling a friend of mine actually today, and he'll know who he is, that working on nano tanks is a lot like building a model. You're always trying to replicate something on a large scale and a smaller scale. So there we go. Very, very simple, extremely simple build there. So hopefully you guys can see that. Now the next stage that we're going to do is we're going to have to pour water in this, and this is where things can get a little bit tricky when you're doing a small build like this, is that you can easily disturb your gravel or substrate. You can easily disturb anything that you've planted into the tank. So there's a couple of different ways that you can utilize to fill up an aquarium so it doesn't disturb all of the media. Typically on a larger tank, you can put something in here, fill up around it, like use that to disperse the water and then remove that. And that's what I'm going to do in this case. So what we have here is we have the lovely lid to these actual Tupperware containers, and I bet you this lid would fit the top of the tank. So that might tell me that it ain't going to work. So on to plan B. So when plan A fails, you know, I don't even want to edit this stuff, you know that? This is how it works, guys. This is exactly how it works. Maybe we'll just try pouring it ever so gingerly. What we can do is we can lightly, you know when you're pouring a beer or a soda or anything carbonated, you kind of tip the glass. And there we go, guys. Steady hand, Jampy. Steady hand.
20 minutes later.
So we're going to fill it up to about that level there. I think everything is looking pretty good. Actually, it looks a lot better than I anticipated. I'm just breaking up these surface bubbles, so it's a little bit easier to see. Let me see if I can get a little bit more light on it so we can see it. Alright, so if we were to have our little aquarium light on top of that tank, that's what we would be looking at. And please, phone, don't fall into the aquarium. So I think all in all, that looks pretty good. It came out a lot clearer, and that was the nice thing, was already having to pre-rinse the stratum made it a lot easier to deal with it. Now we do have a little bit of water left over. Just so you know, guys, just once again to clarify again, all of this water is the same water. The fish aren't housed in separate water, they're housed in the exact same water. So I'm not worried about having any type of shock or anything on them. So what we can do now is we can actually add in our 4 little friends. Now, I'll give you a little tip if you're ever doing a small, inexpensive nano build. And Rachel O'Leary, I'm going to throw a big shout out to her for telling me this. And in all sincerity, it was one of the most amazing finds that I've ever had. White cloud minnows are an incredible fish. Super hardy, super easy to keep. They will breed readily. And you can usually pick them up at relatively cheap at your local fish store. At my local fish store today, the price was, I think it was about $1 a fish. I think that's what it was. I think it was like 4 for $3.99 maybe 5 for $3.99. I got these guys out of the feeder bin for 18 cents a piece. And one of my all-time favorite fish, and thanks to Rachel for turning me on to them and telling me that to take a look in the feeder bin. And it was confirmed by my local fish store that there's no difference between the fish in the aquarium and the fish that is in the feeder bin. So we're quite fortunate to have that. So with that being said, we do have our 4 white cloud minnows here. And I'm going to do a quick changeover for them and get them settled into their illustrious fish condo. And that's also going to help top up the water. And there we go. Fish are in. Now let's top up the water to a usable level. We have a floaty of Java moss in here. And of course the water will clear up overnight. What I want to do is I want to fill it up almost to the throat so we don't see a surface line. Now the last thing I want to do is that the lid is solid for this tank, so it is virtually airtight. By the way, I got these at IKEA, super cheap, and they're glass. So what we want to do is, if you have a hole saw or even a drill bit, I want to do 2 holes. One hole I want to do for the size of air tubing, just in case I need to put some type of filtration into the filter or make a super mini sponge filter or something. We want to make sure that we have a hole that is the size of our air feed tubing. So this is actually a little hole reamer that you can pick up from your local hobby supply store, and it works really nice. So we can just make sure that the hole, and it does a really nice clean round hole, and make sure, okay, we got to go a little bit bigger. Hopefully you guys can see that. I just don't want to get any plastic floating in the tank. And there we go. Perfect size for some airline tubing. So even if I, to add some water in, or to suck some water out, or to put even if I needed to use a small pump and aerate the water in case things don't work out so well with the plant, we're good there. The next thing I want to do is I want to put a little feeding hole in here, so that way I don't always have to remove the top in order to feed the fish. Now, we just want to do another hole. This will also allow some evaporation to take place, and then it'll allow us to continue doing water changes. So there we go. There's our feeding hole there. Or maybe even I can find a small LED light and mount it in there as well. So that gives us a lot of options as we want to do. And that's how you just use that hole reamer to go on there. So last but not least, we then, if everything works out, we then can put on our lid, and there we have our little Nano windowsill aquarium. And if I do say so myself, it was a fun little project. Of course, you screw it up a couple times along the way, but I think this is great. We'll see how the Java moss does. The water, of course, will clear up. It'll be easy to do water changes on. What I probably will do is have use a piece of airline tubing with a small piece of filter floss at the end, so I don't accidentally suck up any fish. I usually use any type of coupling. In this case, this one's off of an old sponge filter. I can stick a piece of tubing in, connect that onto it, then connect my line, draw the water out, and then I can slowly pour the water back through in that top hole, or even just catch it in that top reservoir. So that's it, guys. That is my virtually free, except for I had to buy 10 of those fish, and the rest are happily housed up in my 15-gallon Nano. So that cost me all of $2 to do this. Obviously, if you were to buy the decorative rock and some stratum, but most of this stuff can be found locally as well, or traded with other fish heads that you have in your area. Make sure you check out your local fish forums, and make sure that you like and subscribe to my videos. If you do like the way that I make videos, please let me know. If you feel that there's anything I can do better, please let me know. All criticism is constructive criticism as far as I'm concerned. I'm Jampy00. Until next time, I'll catch you later. particulate that we're stirring up in the water will of course settle down in time. We'll just continue to fill it up slow, and we can already see that we're starting to see some clear water. Hopefully this is all in frame here. And guys, I'm going to give you another pro tip from Jampy. Never fill an aquarium on a full bladder. I think we're actually going to stay pretty clear.